Welcome to the Sookie Crochet Cardigan.
We got show me love, show me love. This is all we got. Show me love.
Hey everybody, I'm Robin Chichula. I'm your crochet instructor on this journey through the Sookie Crochet Cardigan. This project is a great project if you've never crocheted a sweater before and you've always wanted to. Because what we've done is we kind of broken it way back. So there's only a few things that you need to learn or be reminded about to start your journey. Now, if you've made a million garments, well then this is specifically designed to be fun. So you combine those two things together, fun and kind of the first tips of doing it. Hopefully this little journey that we're going to go on will be super enjoyable. And with that, we're on our very first step. So I'm hoping that you have some yarn that you want to use and you have a hook, because that's all you need to get started. What we're going to do is step by step is work us through this project. And when I said it was easy, what I mean by this is it is not really done the way you're going to see a lot of patterns where you have like fronts. In our case, we're making a cardigan, so 2 fronts, a back, and sleeves. We obviously have sleeves. What we're starting on is what you'll notice is the beginning of the pattern. It talks about a panel. Normally, in this part of the process of if you were reading a different kind of pattern, is you would be starting on the back or the front panel, back or front panel. In ours, we just label it panel because what we're doing is making a long rectangle that becomes our front and our back all at the same time. And that was done on purpose, just so that you could get started and you don't have to worry so much about your shaping. You can just get used to the process of gauge and your stitches and things like that to make it a little bit easier and a bit more enjoyable. Because I feel like we all can make a rectangle. It's basically, we're making fat scarves. Fat, very short scarves is how we really should be looking at it right now, which kind of makes it great. All right. Today, we're going to be doing 2 things at once. To really get us started, you obviously need to worry about your gauge. To do your gauge, you need to do a swatch. To do your swatch, you need to know what stitches are in the pattern. See how that like layers on? Why do you need to know what gauge it is? Because you need to know exactly what hook is going to work for you. The way that the pattern is done is I wrote it to my gauge, but with everybody, our gauges could be off. You could be a tighter crocheter, you could be a looser crocheter than me. And we are going to work on how to measure that, how to figure that out. But of course, before we can figure any of that stuff out, we have to know what stitches we're doing. Because the way our gauge is written is it's written not to just like any stitch. I'm not just having you do like a whole bunch of double crochets and we're going to measure that. It is written towards the pattern of what the pattern is, and we have specific stitches. So this video, our beginner getting started, getting us going, is going to be a little bit longer than some of our other videos as you see as we go along. Because there's a lot of information. We got to know all of the stitches that are happening in the panel. We have to know what our gauge is so we can figure out our hook, and that can take a little bit. So I want you to sit back, relax. You can crochet along with me if you want, or you can watch and then go with it. However it makes it best for you. What I will find it's easiest is make sure you have your yarn, make sure you have your hook, and if you can have your pattern nearby too, so you can kind of follow along on what I'm doing. All right, with that, let's head down so you can see what I'm working on. So, first off, I said I want you to have your yarn. And in this project, we listed 2 yarns. We listed Ferris wheel, which is one of the yarns, and we listed melange. You'll notice right away, I'm going to be doing all of our gauge information with neither of those things. And the reason is all of these yarns, both of them are gorgeous, but they go through this color transition. And if you look at it up on another sample that I'm working on, is that sometimes you can see immediately, sometimes on camera, these would be great. Like if it was all like this light gray, it'd be great to work. But when it gets to these dark colors, you can't see it on camera. In person, I can see the stitches, but on camera, I can't see it at all. So I decided to just go ahead and I'm going to be doing all of the videos in one solid color, just so you can see it a little bit better. I also have hidden somewhere a stitch marker. So this might be also something you want to go and grab right now. This is only if you haven't done foundation stitches before, and you'll see. And then I have my handy stitch diagram. I have this near me so I remember what we're doing. You don't have to have that near you. That's for me. All right. So as I was saying, is we need to make a swatch because we need to check our gauge. What gauge is real brief. So here's another panel that I'm doing. This is unblocked. I'm working on the panel. Gauge is both width and height. So in our case, I gave it so that it's over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitch repeats. So either 6 of our X's or 6 of our groups, or 18 stitches if you're measuring it down here, equals 5 inches. Then the row, it is 2 full repeats equals 7 inches. That's our row gauge. And it literally means you measure it this way and you measure it this way. So measuring it this way is 16 rows is 7 inches. Measuring it this way is 18 stitches, or I like to look at these in like groups, or 6 groups equals 5 inches. So we need to make something, a swatch, so that we can measure that. And to do that, we're going to do the actual stitches, because I like measuring my gauge on the stitches that I'm doing, because I find sometimes we all vary if we are loose or tighter depending on the stitches. So for us, instead of starting on your panel right away and measuring your gauge on that, we're going to make a little swatch, and it's doing the exact same thing that's in your instructions. But instead of starting with however many foundation single crochets you need to do for your size, you're going to start with 20. That's the only difference. You also I mentioned that it's 18 stitches is 5 inches, but I'm having you do 20. It's because when you're doing a swatch, you want to do a little bit more so you can measure inside your swatch. You're not measuring edge to edge. You're measuring inside your swatch. I know, lots of information all before we actually get to do anything. Let's start. So this project is started with foundation half doubles. It's a big mouthful. I love foundation stitches. If you've been around, you know I like doing it. And especially when I'm doing garments, I like to do it. Foundation stitches are a bit more stretchy, which is nice whenever you're doing a garment. Sometimes we can crochet our chain so tight that we can't have any wiggle room. Our foundation stitches have more wiggle room, so I like to start them that way. To get started on a foundation half double, there's lots of different ways of starting. I'm going to show you my favorite way of starting. You do it the way you like to do it. So the way I like to start it is I'm going to start with a chain 2. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 1, 2. That doesn't count as anything. It's just getting us a little bit taller. So with this, we're going to start our first foundation half double. We're going to yarn over our hook, insert it into the first chain or the second 1, 2 from your hook, and pull up a loop. So now it looks like I'm just doing a half double in the very first chain. Here's where it changes. So once you have your 3 loops on your hook, you're going to yarn over, pull through 1. This right here created a chain, essentially. This is essentially a chain. If it is your first time doing it, I want you to mark that stitch, because that is where every single time is where we're going to insert our hook. So when you have it marked, you won't be wondering where you're going. You're going to go where it's marked. We have 3 loops left on our hook. That we're going to yarn over, pull through all 3 of those is our half double. All right, so we made 1. Now we're going to grow up this way, and we're going to make another one. We're going to yarn over. Insert your hook into the base of the stitch where it's marked. Insert your hook where your stitch marker went. Pull up a loop, so you have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 1. That made a chain. Move your hook, move your hook, move your stitch marker. Yarn over, pull through those 3. That made another half double. Again, yarn over your hook. Insert your hook where your stitch marker is or the base of the stitch. Pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through 1. Again, that made the base of the stitch or your chain. Now yarn over, pull through 3. That made your half double. Yarn over. Insert your hook into the base of the stitch or where it's marked. Yarn over. Pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through 1. Mark your stitch. Yarn over, pull through 3. So we've now made 4 half doubles. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are our top loops. These down here is the base of the stitch. How can I tell that? Is because the loops that are closest to my hook, that is going to be the top. The ones that are furthest away, that's the base of my stitch. So I need you to do 20 for this swatch. Yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. So I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to just go ahead and make 20. You guys can zoom ahead on the video while I'm crocheting if you want to, or watch me make 20, whatever makes you happy. So I am not really strict about what you do. If you like these foundation stitches that I'm doing, go ahead and do those. If you would prefer to chain and do 20 half double crochets, you go ahead and do that. I want you to do whatever makes you happy. I'm just telling you that I like to start my projects with foundation half doubles or whatever foundation stitches I'm doing for the project, because it makes it easier for me. And one, I find that I have a much stretchier base, which sometimes makes a difference. If I didn't need it, I wouldn't use it. Let's put it that way. So my preference is to do the foundation stitches, but let's be honest, everybody's different. Everybody has a different feeling on this. If you don't like them, then don't do them and just chain what you need and do however many half double crochets you need for this project. If you're doing the swatch, you need 20 half double crochet. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 4 more. 17, 18, 19, 20. All right. So like I said, to do our swatch, I wanted 20. That way, the two ends I don't have to measure, and I can measure, get a really good, decent measurement inside. A lot of time your edges will be off a bit, so you don't want to measure when you're measuring your swatch edge to edge. It just doesn't always give you the correct amount. So I always like to make my swatches a little bit bigger. So in this case, I have 2 more stitches. All right, the next row. The next row is doing single crochets, and we have this little arrow at the bottom. Our key tells us that we're doing it in the 3rd loop. If you've been around, I like the 3rd loop just as much as I like doing foundation stitches. So big surprise, we're doing them right away. We're going to chain 1, turn our work. Now, if you've never worked in the 3rd loop before, it's really fun. Any stitch that is tall, so a half double or taller, they have what's called the 3rd loop or the back bar, or they have something else. So let's do a little bit of terminology. When we're looking at our stitches, I'm looking at the top of my stitches. We have the front loop. The front loop is always the loop that's closest to you. You're holding your stitches, you're looking at it. This is my front loop, it's closest to me. Your back loop is always the one that's furthest from you, that's away from you. It's not like the front or back of your work because, we're turning our work, so our front and back are really not a thing. That's where like the front loop and back loop can get confusing. We're talking about front loop is that the one that's closest to you. Back loop is the one that's furthest from you. 3rd loop is not either of those. So basically, normally when we're doing a stitch, you're going under both the front and back loop at the same time. You're going under both of your top 2 loops. Well, your 3rd loop is this guy right here. So again, let me show you. These are our top 2 loops. If I lay my work down, I have this very strong horizontal line. That is my 3rd loop. They're in double crochets or in anything tall. If you locate your top 2 loops, the loop that's right under it, there's a horizontal bar right under it. That's your 3rd loop. That's where we're putting our stitches. That's the big excitement. And you'll see right away why we do it. You'll be able to tell right away if you got it or not. You're going to do a single crochet in each one of these. So a single crochet. Insert your hook into the 3rd loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. That's your single crochet. Insert your hook into the 3rd loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. That's your single crochet. So you'll put a single crochet in each one of your half doubles. I will say when you are doing this over and over and over again, these 2 rows, the half doubles and the singles, this is when I am definitely binging Gilmore. Well, frankly, I've been binging Gilmore Girls through this whole project. So I was just watching. This is where I'm not even looking what I'm doing. I'm just watching TV. This is like the relaxing part. There's no stitch counts that you need to worry about. So this little stitch pattern has, a nice, 4 or 5 rows within each of the little repeats where you can just go on auto palette because it's just 1 in each all the way across. So I'm all the way across back to that little chain 2, and I ignore that. It's not a stitch. It was just our setup. I'm ignoring it. So I have 20 single crochets. And we will be able to tell immediately if we did that 3rd loop right when you turn your work back over and you see this beautiful line of V's going all the way across your project. Those are the top 2 loops that we didn't go in. So if you don't see that, if you don't see this nice line, that means that you caught one of your top loops. It's fine, rip it out and try again. This is how you can immediately tell that you got in that 3rd loop, and that's kind of like the part of the project. Okay, Now we're jumping into really the nuts and bolts of our stitch pattern. So our stitch pattern is made up of these rows of X's. For, like this is a repeat, obviously. For each of the 8 rows that makes up our row repeat, we have 2 rows of these X's. They're great stitches. They're really fun to do. But I was telling Marley, like there's these stitches that you do that you just love. They make such an impact. But to write them out, you think, oh my gosh, how is anyone going to understand what I want to be done? That's why videos are so wonderful, so you can see what I'm doing. All right, in our stitch pattern, these are the X's. These are the X's that you see on your crochet cardigan. They're these cute little X's. I have a lot of things to say about them, so I'm going to pause what I'm saying real quick and just show you what I'm doing because it's hard for me not to ramble on. Okay, to get started, we're going to do a stacked double crochet. The reason we like to do this is it gives a really nice crisp edge. If for some reason you hate stacked double crochets, that's totally fine. Chain 3 instead. Just do your chain 3 and keep going. Count that as a stitch. But we like doing these stacked double crochets because it gives you a nice clean edge and like something worth of weight, as you can say. Like there's more than just a chain 3 on the edge. All right, one more time. We're going to insert a hook into the first stitch. Pull up a loop. You have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2. There are these 2 vertical lines. You're going to insert your hook in between the 2 of them. Yarn over, pull up a loop, then yarn over, pull through 2. This makes your stacked double crochet. It's kind of like 2 single crochets on top of each other without doing a chain 1. Kind of. But you can see this is much more substantial than doing a chain. So this is why we like to do this. All right, to get started on the X, we are going to do double crochet 3 stitches away. So we skip 1, 2, and we do a double crochet in the 3rd. So yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, pull up a loop. Then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So it's just a double crochet, 3 stitches from where we were. Chain 1, 2. Now we're going to put a double crochet back into the same space as the previous double crochet 2 behind. Basically, I want you to make an X. So you're going to insert your hook back into this stitch. So skip back 2 stitches and go into the next one. Let me show you how it's done. So you yarn over. You keep your work in the front. We're working in front of this. So I'm going to insert my hook from the front to the back into that same stitch to yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So if I look at my work, I have the double crochet back here. It's all by itself. And then I have my double crochet in the front. They are not connected. So the yarn was not wrapped around. And they make an X. So let's do it again. Skip 2 stitches, do a double crochet into the next one. Pull through 2, pull through 2. Chain 1, 2. Then in the same stitch as the leg from the previous X, I'm going to insert my hook. So I'm skipping back 1, 2 and inserting my hook into this stitch. If you pick up your work, so I'm always grabbing my work, but if you're a thrower, you got to make sure that yarn is in the front so it's there when you need it. Insert your hook from the front to the back. Yarn over, insert your hook from the front to the back, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So again, these are not looped around each other. They're totally separate. So let's do it again. 1, 2, do a double crochet in the next one, chain 2. Now, if you like kind of like picking up your stitches, which is what I like to do, when you're going in that stitch, in the leg, in the same stitch as the previous X's leg, what I like to do is fold. I will fold the stitch that I just made. I kind of fold that down. So it's like it's not even there. So I'm not by accidentally wrapping around it. So I have my yarn over my hook to make my next double crochet. I folded this out of the way so then I can just have that stitch that I want to hop into available for myself to do my double crochet. Let me show that again. Skip 2 stitches and do a double crochet in the next single crochet, chain 2. And I know I need to put my stitch, my double crochet in the leg, in the same stitch as the previous X's leg. So I'm folding that double crochet I just made away so I don't see it. I'm yarning over, inserting my hook into the stitch, pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. That's how I find it easiest to do it. I will say that's the whole reason what we swatch, because it'll take you a little while to get used to manipulating your yarn to get it the way you like to hold it. So again, the easiest way I find it after I did my chain 2 is to kind of fold it away, yarn over, and then I insert from the front to the back of the stitch, yarn over my hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. That's the way I find it the easiest to make these X's. Now, one thing you'll notice is when they're laying down unblocked, you don't really see an X. You don't see it until it's blocked, until it's stretched out, and that's when you'll see an X. So I don't want you to like worry too much of like, oh, I'm doing it wrong. As long as your stitches are not wrapped around each other, you did it right. So again, skip 2, 1, 2, double crochet in the next one, chain 2, 1, 2, double crochet in the same stitch as the previous leg, or at the end we double crochet in the last one. All right, on our little swatch that means that there were 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these chain 2 spaces. Time to turn. And we're going to do a stack double crochet in the very first stitch. And then in each one of these chain 2 spaces. So you kind of pull your 2 double crochets apart. You're going to put 3 double crochets into the space. So these go nice and quick. I just basically, the hardest thing to do is to pull them apart. I like to pull them apart and kind of use my fingers so I make a nice little pathway for myself. I'm not going in the chains, I'm going in the around the chain 2 spaces to do my 3 double crochets. It's really easy to want to put them in between the 2 X's, but we're putting them in the center of the X in the chain 2 space that you made between the 2 double crochets. By doing these 3 double crochets, it kind of will spread out your stitches as well to make sure that that X will be prominent once we block our swatch. All right, we get back to the end and where it's time for some more X's, a double crochet in the last stitch and then turn. Okay, so this is, we're back to the right side. So you can see those groups pretty well. And you can tell when I stretch out our work, you can see the X's pretty nicely too. but don't worry too much when you can't see them this way, because when you, like if you stretch it this way, you can't see it at all. Okay, let's do those X's again. I'm going to start with a stacked double crochet once again. And now it's the same thing. Last time we were going into single crochets, now we're going into doubles. It doesn't matter, it's the same thing. Do a double crochet 3 stitches away, chain 2, then go ahead and do a double crochet into the previous double crochet. So in this case, it's kind of nice when we got those groups of 3. You're going to put your double crochet into the last group of 3, and then you'll put your next double crochet into the previous groups. Chain 2. So the hardest thing with these is just making sure that your yarn is in the front when you come and do that double crochet in the front. So sometimes I will even drop it to make sure that it's in the front, and then pick it back up so that it's in the front of my work. Now let's see if I can do an oops by accident, so you can see what it looks like if you forget to have your yarn in front, and so that you get all tangled up. Yeah, oh yeah. Okay. So if by accident you go around, so here, I can stick my fingers through. If by accident you go around the stitch, so you encased it in your work, so it's on both sides, it's encased, it would look like this. So like you would have like this longer leg versus you can kind of separate these two. This is not what I designed, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you're super frustrated about constantly putting this one in the front and the only thing you can do is encase it, then just do that. Like, you can see the difference. They're not that different. There's a slightly different feel of the fabric, but they don't look that different. So if you want to keep doing it this way, go ahead. It's not as written, but you're going to say it's a design feature, and that's the way you like to do it. It is one of those things that you just go with. And that is your decision, and there's nothing wrong with that. So again, I'm making sure that I'm putting my double crochets, that they're not encased. And, I didn't make the oops, but if you're just getting frustrated and you're going to want to do it that way, that's fine. As long as you got like an X looking something, we're good. We're fine. You and I, we're good to go. Okay, let me finish this. So with this, that's really what you need to know for these stitch patterns. If we look at the rest of the rows going ahead, the next thing we do after the X's is we put 3 single crochets in each one of the chain 2 spaces. Great. Then a whole bunch of a double crochet in each one, a double crochet, a half double in each one. Then we do the third loop again, a half double, then the third loop again, and it repeats. You guys don't need to see that all again. If you need to repeat it, just go back and watch it. But you just need to keep growing. I would do all 16 stitches. It makes it a lot easier when you are measuring. So, again, back to gauge. Remember, this was a gauge swatch. The reason, there's a whole nother thing with this, is that as you can see, our unblocked, not blocked, is squishy. Like these are squished down. Our blocked is measured like this, where you can see the X's. So that literally means is I need you, let me show you. I need you to come and block your swatch. This is upside down. So here's my swatch. And all finished. And you can see the difference in the stitching. This is what I looked like unblocked, and this is what I look like blocked. Basically, you need to stretch it out and up so you can measure your gauge. And I said, remember, 18 stitches across is 5 inches. 16 rows is 7 inches. But to measure it, it needs to be all spread out. So let's say you spread it all out and you know, your 18 stitches is measuring, it should measure 5, but it measured 6. And like your rows, instead of measuring 7, measured 8. That means that your hook is too big. You need to go down a size. Your swatch is too big. That means your hook is too big. You need to go down a size. Okay, let's say you spread it all out. And when I said, you know, like block it, I want you to pin it all out. You don't actually have to finish blocking it. It's much more of like stretching it out. The bigger thing is stretching it out versus like spraying it or seaming it or anything like that. You got to stretch it out to make sure you like the look. And for me, I need to see the X's. That's liking the look. That's blocking it. Let's say you did that and stretched it all out. And instead of 5 inches across you're supposed to be, you have 4 inches. And instead of 7, you have 6. That means that your hook is too small. Your swatch is too small. Your hook is too small. You got to go up a hook size. So that's how you gauge the two different sizes. And, you know, yes, there's a lot to this first step. This is all before you get to actually start crocheting your panel. Like before you get to actually do this, is you got to make your little swatch and make sure you're doing the right hook size, because there's nothing more frustrating is that you make your whole panel and then I tell you to go block it, go pin it and spray it, and you're like, well, mine is 20 inches bigger than it's supposed to be. It's because the hook size was wrong. So yes, this seems like a lot of work, and it is. It's a lot of work to figure it out. Now, some of us will immediately hit it with the exact right hook size and everything immediately. Good to go. Well, then you're good to go. Then you start on your panel and you get going. I will say, because we're making such an oversized sweater, if you are within 1/4 of an inch, now normally I wouldn't say this, but in this case, if you're within 1/4 of an inch, you're fine. So what if yours is going to be a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger? We're talking so oversized. Remember that like your bust size, oversized means you take your bust size and then you add to it. So, you know, you take your bust size plus 9 or 10 inches. Well, let's say yours was 8 inches bigger than your bust size. Am I going to notice a difference between a 9-inch bigger versus an 8-inch bigger bust size? No. Or let's say it ends up being, 11 inches versus, 10 inches. I'm not going to notice that. So like, don't drive yourself crazy. We designed it on purpose with these panels so that if you are a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller, it's okay. But if you're more than 1/4 of an inch, you got to go up or down. It's basically what happens is it ripples. For like an extra small, you wouldn't notice it. But if you were doing, let's say 3X, it starts to ripple because it's not just 1/4 of an inch here. It's 1/4 of an inch for every 6 groups of those X stitches. So it can, really quickly ripple to something much, much bigger. So you want to be close, but we designed it so that if you are a little bit off, it'll be fine. All right. I'm sure there's a ton more things that you're thinking to yourself, like, man, there's a ton of stuff. Just a couple things to remember. One is making sure that you're figuring out if you want to do foundation stitches or chains to get started. That's your business. I like foundation stitches. 2, make sure that you understand where the third loop is. That's super important. And that's what you're going to really get those beautiful lines in our project. So all of these lines that you can see, that's the third loop. We want those. That's 2. 3 is getting your X's. Again, I really like that my front one is not wrapped around my back one. But if you can't do it, I don't care. Making sure your X's are right. And then once you finished your swatch, again, remember, I'm not expecting you to block it in terms of like, there's 3 different ways of blocking. For this yarn, we recommend steam blocking. I'm not saying that you have to steam it right now, but I am saying that you need to pin it out. Pin it out so you can see once you think about it as steps in the blocking process. First thing you need to do is pin it out, and then you do the next step in the blocking process. You don't have to do the steaming part, but I do need you to spread it out so that you can measure it correctly to get those 2 measurements. So those are the 4 things you need to do so you can make sure that you understand the pattern. Once you got that down, you are off. Go crochet. Go, 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 go. I'm going to have more tips along the way for you, but you are all started. Thank you for sticking with me. I know it was a lot of information to get started with, but your Sookie Crochet Cardigan is going to be so worth it. All right. I will see you again soon. Go get started. Good luck. And don't forget, if you have questions, please ask them in the Marley Bird Minions Facebook group. That's where all of us will see the questions and we can answer them. Because to get started, there's tons of questions. And please ask them. We want to help you out with that, all that. All right. Till then, I will see you again shortly. Bye. Enjoy crocheting, everybody.